Well, I'm about to make some predictions for the next year and a half. So those of you who followed me over here from my other channel, Crowned Ones, and are subscribed to my backup channel, Crowned Ones 2, thank you for following me. And yeah, I've got a lot of predictions about the next year and a half ahead. But before we get into that, I want to give a little bit of context with, a recap of what we've already been through the last year and a half that is bringing about the shift point on January 11th when the nodes shift out of Aries and Libra and into Pisces and Virgo. So some of the main themes of the last year and a half with the North Node in Aries has been a lot of self versus other. And this hasn't been easy because during this time, Chiron has also been in Aries. So it's been some painful realizations, I think, for many of us that we've had to break away from some relationships because of a lack of cooperation, misaligned values, and through these challenges that, yes, are sometimes painful, I think that we're starting to understand what we want and what we need versus what others want, need. And maybe we do want, need the same thing, but our life paths are taking us in two totally different directions. Or again, value systems might be taking us in totally different directions. Now, during this time, there's been a bit of brat energy. I'm not going to make light of it. North Node in Aries has brought a notable amount of egocentric behavior. A lot of me, myself, and I, me, and what about me? And there's a positive to that. There's a time and a place to that. And then there's a not so positive time and place for that. But I think through it all that we've come to recognize, again, this issue of self-interest and being self-serving, right? Time and a place. At what point do we need to act in our own best interest, our own self-interest? At what point do we need to be self-serving? And what other times do we need to serve the interests and the best interests of others? So we've been learning over the last year and a half to strike the right balance, and this is going to come in handy over the next year and a half when we get a little bit of crossover in 2025. I think it's very interesting that we've got, from the last year and a half to the next year and a half, these energies of Pisces and Aries kind of switching places, where, right, we had North Node in Aries last year and a half, and now it's going into Pisces. And Saturn and Neptune have been in Pisces where they're switching to Aries. So there's a lot of themes of endings when we talk about Pisces versus beginnings, Aries. A lot of themes of innocence, Aries versus transcendence, Pisces. And also naivete, Aries versus wisdom, Pisces. What does this mean? Well, I think the last 2 years, what it has meant is, yeah, a lot of people have been kind of going their own way, doing their own thing, doing whatever they want. And that's meant a lot of people going in different directions. But like I said, we've been learning what we want and need so that we can get clear on who we need to be rightly aligned with. That's the positive in this. And we've been learning what the deal breakers are in relationships, So individually, we've been finding our own power. And yeah, that's great. I mean, we are powerful at an individual level, but now, we're having to understand that there's even greater, more exponential power with individuals when they come into agreement, when they cooperate, when they multiply efforts based on shared values and a shared sense of direction. Over the last year and a half, we've learned a lot of tough lessons with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, having to do with blurred boundaries, toxic positivity, suicidal empathy. We've learned some tough lessons about passivity, escapism. We've learned some tough lessons also about false optimism and, dopamine addiction and hopium addiction. So over the next year and a half, as these energies switch up a bit, I think what we're going to see is less ego, more altruism. Yes, we're still learning about our own personal limits and boundaries and how to take the higher road, not just for ourselves, but also for others. I think we are going to see some tough lessons ahead with Saturn and Aries having to do with self-sufficiency, blurred personal boundaries, and all of these lessons are really pushing us to mature and come into a higher level of self-mastery. Also, when it comes to overcoming personal limitations, I think it will be key to become more self-aware during this time. And yeah, do the self-awareness work, but becoming more self-aware in a spiritual sense, realizing that we are spiritual beings and we have spiritual work to do here. Our lives are not just for our own self-interest and furtherment, but also for the collective. So doing the spiritual work and developing more of a moral compass, more of a discerning spirit in terms of being in right standing with a higher power, a higher authority other than man or man's laws, or what man understands to be right. That's going to help us, I think, to transcend personal limitations.